When we are focusing on our assets, we might have a good idea and understanding how they are performing today and maybe also how they are performing tomorrow. But that doesn't help us to make intervention decisions. There we need to take into consideration what is my risk exposure into the future for the upcoming years, 10 years, 20 years, and what is my budget and what is my resource availability in order to execute those type of interventions. And with Copperleaf Asset, we are going to support you on how to get most of your out of your asset base with the right intervention being timed. If we try to put that into a perspective, we're going to look at two different type of interventions, one for an asset type A and one for an asset type B, where we're both going to do a replacement. Both have a different cost and a different age. Both of them are quite old and require an intervention, and the one of them is quite a lot more expensive than the version A. And before we're going to make a decision on which one we would like to fund, we need to have, of course, some information on the intervention itself, because our interventions have impact not just on costs and resource consumption, but also on service levels where we need to adhere to. So, for example, we would like to control reliability risk, and both replacements have a different impact on them. In a similar way, they account for safety risk, on resource requirements, maintenance reductions, which could save costs, and environmental risk. And this already shows what kind of complex picture this is sketching when we need to make such decisions, especially when we are going to take into consideration that we're not having just two assets that we need to compare against each other, but we have hundreds or thousands of assets which are installed at a very different date, which have very different needs in order to keep them maintained, keep them also in the right shape, and also need to know when they need to be replaced or refurbished. In this sense, we also need to manage the costs, resources, and risk that are associated with our processes. If we don't invest in the right place at the right time, we might be confronted with a bow wave of required interventions into the future. Often there's an inability to define risks for all assets. So we have a variety of assets within our asset base, and we're not able to articulate well on how risks are evolving for individual asset types. And the same applies in order to forecast the risks that are associated with it. So we need to set budget aside, not just for this year, but also for upcoming years, in order to manage that risk. Often budget is set aside based on historical usage, but that leads to an unknown risk exposure into the future. When we are setting a budget for the upcoming years, we're often not able to understand that risk exposure developing over time. As we are setting that and we are executing those investments with the budget that we are selecting, we are also not sure on how that budget needs to evolve over time into the far future and what kind of impact that it actually has on if I'm overspending or underspending on my asset base. So we see a need in order to have a process in place which is going to help us support to understand what is the required budget for the upcoming years, what's the required resource consumption for the upcoming years in order to keep a risk exposure profile which we feel comfortable with. And Copperleaf Asset helps to detect those needs. So for each individual asset type, we're able to understand what is the optimal intervention date. Means what is the ideal time to intervene on a given asset with a certain type of intervention strategy, and we're able to articulate that across the complete asset base. And this is done within the Copperleaf Asset module of our AIP solution. And you see that there is a very scattered picture on how these dates are being mapped across the complete asset base. So this is a growing complexity that we need to manage. And with a solution that's going to support you in it, you might be overlooking also some risky assets which require immediate attention. And a tool supporting you can help you to prevent such situations. So with using an asset investment planning tool, you can see some proper outcomes in increased the performance of your asset management process. So we will see that there is an improved overview of your risk management process across the asset base. We will see that you'll be able to align with regulatory needs and to keep track on projected service levels while maintaining or increasing process efficiencies. So there are some clear articulated outcomes that are being achieved by our clients making use of Copperleaf Asset. In this overview, I'm showing you our key Copperleaf clients that are making use of Copperleaf Asset, but also our Copperleaf Portfolio solution, where they are maintaining their investments and investment optimization processes. And we are seeing that this is not only applicable to electricity distribution, but also electricity transmission, generation, but also other types of industries like natural gas, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals within the water sectors, and the different branches within transport, like railway, ports, and airports. And especially in Europe, we are seeing a rapid adoption of AIP, and this also leads to a growing customer base in the variety of industries.